My name is Dan Shea. I lead our enabling platforms team at ABI Research, and I'll be emceeing this webinar. Just a few quick notes before we start. Please use the Q&A box you'll find on the bottom of the window here to log your questions. We'll take them at the very end. Let's get started. So you can see a quick view of the table of contents there. Basically, we're going to have two individuals really provide the meat of this, who are really the experts here. I'll introduce them shortly, but we'll give a short overview looking at IoT, how it's changing, and sort of the needs of the marketplace as it relates to connectivity and related types of services around connectivity. And then we're going to move into an introduction and a discussion of floLIVE, and that will be by their CEO, Nir Shalom. So with that, why don't we go to the next slide, and I'll introduce our two speakers. So as I said, my name is Dan Shea. I'm Vice President of Enabling Platforms, and I'll be emceeing this event. I'm joined by my colleague, Jamie Moss. He's a research director within the IoT team at ABI. Jamie has many years of experience in this M2M, IoT, and IoE space, over 20 in fact. He has deep experience and knowledge in the telecom space, as well as in IoT, particularly around connectivity and those sorts of related services. Our other speaker is Nir Shalom. He's the CEO of floLIVE. Nir has many years of experience in the IoT and telecom space as well. Prior to floLIVE, he was the general manager of AT&T Israel. He also was the vice president of network application development, and he managed a team of over 1,000 employees worldwide looking at technology and software development. Prior to that, he was at Interwise, who was a global provider of voice, video, and web conferencing. And Interwise was actually acquired by AT&T back in 2007. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Jamie Moss, and we will jump into the presentation. Go ahead, Jamie.
Thanks very much, Dan. So moving on to this next slide, and to begin this presentation, we're going to look at the changing face of the Internet of Things. We can currently see, as a result of ABI Research's analysis, cellular IoT connections by category this year, as of 6 years ago, and also in 6 years' time. At the end of last year, 2020, there was a total of 6.5 billion IoT devices deployed and activated around the world. And of that total, 730 million were cellular. To put the growth of the cellular IoT market into perspective, there was only 170 million back in 2014. And we expect that in the next 6 years, there will be a further 4-fold growth in the total number of cellular IoT connections. When we look at the IoT market here at ABI, we cover a total of 32 markets of end use. And we can aggregate those markets up into some higher level categories. And they're the ones that you currently see on screen. Tracking and location, monitoring, and then some more application-specific ones, metering, smart homes, smart cities, and a long tail aggregation of others. Tracking and location is about where something is. Monitoring is about how is something, what is its status. As we can see, as time's going by, it's tracking and location that's going to become the biggest in 6 years, driven by businesses that need to diversify their supply chains and acquire new levels of visibility into the location of their assets and how those assets are performing. The consumer market will also be contributing to this. As tracking technology becomes cheaper enough for general purpose use cases, we're going to see it empowering the shared economy, and we're going to see individual private consumers using low-cost, portable, reusable trackers on their own possessions. Quite simply, more smart devices are being deployed all the time, and more types of devices are becoming smart. Let's move on to the next slide. This allows us to take a look at the types of device we are seeing in the market today that are incorporating cellular connectivity. And IoT devices of different types place different requirements on wireless networks, depending on what it is that they're intended to do. So here we have an example of 4 different categories, if you will, which respond to networks and require networks to respond to them in very different ways. We have devices that are event-based and provide alerts such as window locks, smoke detectors, personal alarms, and manhole monitors. They're effectively simple devices that are encapsulated sensors. They involve infrequent transmissions of data, very low data rates, but could be deployed in very large numbers. We then have mobility and tracker type devices for a number of different end uses. These are devices where mobility is a fundamental part of the value proposition of what the device enables. They need to be providing data on demand and anywhere. Meters are a good example of devices intended to provide scheduled reporting. They aren't mobile, they're stationary. And their job is to provide a deeper understanding of resource management, providing regular updates to the companies that deploy these networks of devices as to the overall performance of their business and the consumption of resource to manage demand. And now we're seeing more and more high bandwidth IoT devices, especially in the cellular domain, especially for LTE, from waterproof routers that need to be deployed outdoors or in any environment to collect together and aggregate the sensor data from multiple local area connected devices, as well as the proliferation of video, autonomous cameras that are self-powered for the sake of security, and then body cams and dash cams, which although in the hands of private consumers or in the hands of workers, will be automated in the way that they come online to record video, to transmit that video back to a central location for information processing. So what's very clear, I think, looking at the market as we see it today, the devices that are on it and what they're being used for, is that the ability to connect diverse IoT device types with very different needs and at massive scale and with global coverage is needed right now. Let's move to the next slide. And we'll turn to connectivity management platforms and their role in accomplishing that task. So CMPs are a fundamental technology enabler for wireless carriers. They allow the carrier's enterprise customers to have self-service management of their networks of connected devices and to be able to attribute custom tariff plans to devices of different types, monitoring their usage and managing their activity. Traditionally, these platforms were provided by existing infrastructure vendors for the telecommunications space, or were provided by companies that were then acquired by traditional infrastructure vendors. CMPs do provide interoperability between carriers, but that's primarily due to the sake of the fact that those carriers are using the same platform. They don't necessarily extend themselves to allowing carriers to have full control of connectivity and the provision of it internationally. Some vendors did offer connectivity. These tended to be the ones that were operating proprietary platforms, wholesaling connectivity from carriers themselves to sell directly on to enterprises. So what we ended up with was 2 markets. The carrier market, where platforms were being used as a means to lever their existing services into this new market of IoT sales, and then the proprietary vendor market, where connectivity was being used as the lever to sell the value-added capabilities of their platforms. In neither case, though, was connectivity actually being monetized as a value-added feature. It was being sold as a commodity. It was not being priced on the value of the utility that it provided. So while we had the beginnings of the market for specialized connectivity, tailored to the use of it by things and not by people, seamless international IoT connectivity provision was a problem that remained unsolved. And in a globalized economy where we have centralized manufacturing, yet localized activation of devices, this was an important problem that needed over time to be solved. Let's move to the next slide. Now that we're a good 10 years or more into the CMP market, it's become clear that there were several shortcomings for carriers from the traditional approach to the delivery of these platforms. It's generally been the case that connectivity management platforms have acted as a pay-as-you-grow loss leader for carriers. While they've allowed carriers to sell their connectivity into the world of the IoT, they haven't necessarily allowed carriers to sell it for any more money. They haven't added any explicit value to that connectivity. We've also seen that the licensing fees that vendors have used haven't always migrated to become suitable for the current environment. The pay-as-you-grow licensing schemes were highly appropriate for spreading the risk, and they allowed carriers to move into the IoT, yet not to have it cost them too much until they were already receiving business from their customers. But this was in the world before we had IoT-specific networks, before we had LTE-M, before we had NB-IoT. And the price plans that were used for the licensing of these platforms on a per connection, per device basis, per month are less applicable in a world where devices are consuming less and less data and are bringing less and less value per connection to the operators. We also saw that connectivity management platforms were highly focused on enabling domestic IoT services for carriers and less focused on allowing those carriers to expand beyond their own geographic boundaries. Yet, as we were saying, continuous service availability at a guaranteed price point all around the world is actually crucial for serving the IoT. And last of all, we've had some issues with the cost of onboarding for SMEs and the question of how carriers can scale downwards. For many years, it was the case that unless a company required thousands of connections up front, it was simply uneconomical for a carrier to be able to afford to provision them with IoT connectivity. And yet those SMEs present the opportunity for companies that might start out with few connections, but will grow to many over time, and that in aggregate will constitute a very substantial market. Progressing to the next slide, we can start to ask the question of what it is today that carriers actually need from connectivity management platform vendors. What requirements are in practice being placed upon those vendors? And what must the new generation of platforms be able to provide? Enterprises want maximum service coverage from an IoT provider. That is to say that they want to go to one service provider, to one carrier that can facilitate whatever it is that they require, wherever their assets are going to be placed around the world, wherever their products and services are going to be active. And this goes right down the chain to the wireless operators, to the carriers. They want to be able to receive as much functionality as possible from the minimum number of vendors. Carriers also need an IoT optimized OSS and BSS, as well as core network. When it comes to the performance of the devices that we were looking at a couple of slides previously, there's far more signaling involved than there is with consumer mobile devices. It places different stresses on the network, and it's necessary in practice to offer IoT alongside consumer mobile broadband to separate out that traffic. Consumer mobile broadband is always going to be the bread and butter income for most wireless carriers, and it can't be put at risk. Therefore, IoT traffic needs to be handled separately and more intelligently to allow them to offer these services in parallel, each one not interfering with the other. Carriers also have exhibited a need for domestic fallback. So even though existing connectivity management platforms allow them to offer effective services within their existing geographies, that one carrier might not have the best coverage all throughout the country. Fortunately, MVNOs and MVNEs exist and can help out mobile operators. It's a bit of an irony that an MVNO that might be wholesaling capacity from multiple carriers actually can offer a more reliable or a more extensive level of coverage within those operators' own home countries. But it's an ironic irony. It's one that's actually an opportunity for operators to use to infill any gaps in their connectivity map. But carriers also need OpEx-based answers to their extraterritorial connectivity coverage needs. They don't want to have to expend more money on more capital expenditure, especially after the considerable costs of looking towards rolling out 5G. To finalize what we're looking for in next generation CMPs and what it is that carriers need from vendors, we need to look to the ease of deployment. A quick time to market and simple integration within existing infrastructure is critical. Many carriers are actually still looking to enter the IoT market for the first time or have some experience, but it's limited, and they want to be able to attack as much of the market as possible in future years. So a new system that they purchase from a new vendor needs to be in place for them as quickly as possible. It also needs to be tightly integrated with all of their other systems. Carriers, by and large, have been around for quite some time now. They've got equipment from multiple vendors. They probably aren't going to look to purchase an entire connectivity management platform and IoT service provision system from a single vendor. They'll have portions from various vendors connected together in a modular fashion as they see fit. So anybody offering a connectivity management platform must be able to quickly integrate with all of the different platforms and equipment that a carrier might already have in operation. Let's move to the next slide. Platform vendors need to provide an answer. So what must connectivity management platform vendors do to successfully serve the carriers of today? Well, vendor infrastructure needs to be designed first and foremost for their customers' customers. That is to say, the customers of the carriers, that is the enterprises. And the enterprises are increasingly global in nature and themselves need simplicity in order to thrive. They shouldn't have to become experts in telecommunications to make use of the IoT within their products and services in order to transform their business. Assistance in establishing coverage for the sake of a global IoT competency and not just domestic ability is required, as we discussed on the previous slide. And for the sake of the ease of deployment, hosted systems are necessary to make maximal use of the cloud. Dedicated IoT-only billing and traffic management is also crucial on the part of the vendors. IoT-only billing that is able to make billing for millions of potential NB-IoT connections still profitable for the operator. When it comes down to the IoT, margin is critical, and any improvement in margin when we're looking at devices that will be deployed in such great numbers will be critical to carrier profitability, regardless of how little explicit value each individual connection has. Margin and scale is what matters most. Last of all, it needs to be the case that vendors eliminate complexity for carriers. Complexity is never an answer. It's only ever a starting point. And through technology enablers that allow the carriers to focus on their core business, that is to say the value-added sale of connectivity, just as the carriers allow their enterprise customers to focus on their own core business, the manufacturing, distribution of the devices that they are experts in designing and the services that they are experts in selling onto other businesses or onto private consumers. So to finish up, before handing off to Nia and the floLIVE team, connectivity management platform vendors did not start out to solve a global problem. They started out to solve a functional problem, to allow operators to transform what they already did and to sell into a new parallel market using the same assets that they'd already deployed and had already become successfully commoditized as a result of the consumer mobile business. But the IoT has now changed. We've got new networks, IoT specific networks. We've got far greater diversity of devices out there and far more demanding quality of service requirements as well as service level agreement requirements from device OEMs and from enterprises. Permanent roaming remains an issue. Roaming fragmentation remains a fundamental issue for wireless carriers worldwide. Is permanent roaming allowed in a country? Which countries is it allowed in? Are there restrictions to it? Are there differences regarding it when it comes down to enterprise connections versus consumer connections? What are the roaming agreement requirements from one country to the next? It varies dramatically, and there is no single solution yet to providing regulatory framework for IoT roaming worldwide. And it's something that we need to try to tackle wherever possible through technology while we're waiting for regulation to catch up. Enterprises also want a one-stop shop that just works, which makes perfect sense because they're very busy having to do other things. And modular but natively integrated systems for global connectivity are absolutely critical. So as we're moving into the future, we find that next generation connectivity management platforms can't just solve technical problems. They also need to solve business problems for their direct customers, the wireless carriers, and for their customers' own customers, the enterprises. I now want to hand off to Nir Shalom, who is going to introduce floLIVE, and he's also going to talk at length about the work that floLIVE has been doing with carriers and with enterprises worldwide to solve their IoT connectivity requirements. Over to you, Nia.
Okay, thank you very much, Jamie, for a very interesting session here, sharing your perspective about the market. My name is Nir Shalom. I'm the CEO of floLIVE, and I'm very happy to be with you all here today. So let's get going. First of all, a little bit about floLIVE. We are a UK-based company with deep mobile expertise and software development expertise coming together. The one thing about floLIVE is that technology, the entire technology that we are going to share and talk about today here is fully owned by floLIVE, which basically allows us to give our customers more flexibility when it comes to deploying our solutions for specific needs, and obviously backed by some leading venture capitals in the market to go and deliver the next generation platforms for IoT. Basically, we are doing two things, and this is very important to understand from the get-going as we talk about the floLIVE solutions. The first thing that we do is we provide a platform, an IoT platform. The IoT platform allows service providers of any type. It can be mobile network operators or MVNOs or IoT service providers or even big enterprises that are becoming the service providers of their own devices to keep the pace of the IoT market while remaining competitive. We put a lot of focus on the commercials and the financials of the platform so that our customers can compete in the market using our platform. And the second thing that we do, we basically provide a global service. This is a cloud-based service that provides a global high-performance and regulatory compliant IoT connectivity. And the combination of these two delivers the specific or unique value proposition for floLIVE. So first of all, looking on the market itself and just adding some more information to Jamie's perspective, we believe that IoT is global by nature. When a device maker is producing devices, in many cases, he would like to serve global use cases or use cases in more than one country. And therefore, global coverage is is essential for delivering the service in a proper way. Global coverage basically requires to first of all meet different regulatory compliance and other related issues, roaming issues, and of course, be able to perform in a consistent way around the world when it comes to high throughput or low latencies or both. So how we look on the solution from a global perspective and not from a regional perspective is one of the things that we do here at floLIVE. The second thing is simple operation. When we speak with our enterprise customers, it's clear that they have their own business. They are not by any way telecom experts or have been working with mobile operators for long, and they would like to have something which is working easily, that has a high level of automation. If they need to integrate that with their system, they would like to have a single integration point. They would like to control the devices globally with a central management capability. Get a single bill, be able to manage and troubleshoot issues on their platform in an easy way once they have it. So this is basically comes to making the solution simple for them to go and consume. And the last thing, but maybe the most important one, global enterprises are looking to optimize their processes, and attractive commercials are really important. So how do we build the right rates globally? How do we provide, for example, pool plans over multiple operators so that the customers can use one pool plan, but use operators around the world in a seamless way? Can we provide new business models where we let customers to grow their business, and we can help them to do that in a cost-effective way? And can we allow them to do a multi-tier support? Meaning, can we allow our customers to go and sell solutions to other customers, and let the other customers to go and manage their solution in a simple way, in kind of a multi-tier fashion? And the challenges that we see for operators, for service providers, again, IoT service providers or operators or MVNOs, or again, even big enterprises that have decided to become the service providers of their own devices. We are seeing some barriers that are just adding to what Jamie was talking about before when it comes to the existing connectivity management solution or the existing global connectivity solutions that they have. First of all, high TCO. We know the legacy platforms in the market, and we know that in many cases, the legacy solutions are expensive to implement and expensive to maintain. They will take a big chunk of the revenue from the IoT use cases. The second thing is that when we talk about total cost of ownership, the footprint of legacy solutions can be pretty extensive when it comes to a core network, when it comes to the connectivity management portal itself, when it comes to the BSS capabilities that come with the IoT. Building that will require probably another investment in CapEx. Time to market is long to go and deliver such a solution. And these solutions, the legacy solutions, do not always have the advanced 5G networking capabilities in like a flexible way. So for example, can we look on a global private network for some of our customers? Can we look on a campus solution on a specific industrial site? And can we do it seamlessly and easily without needing to build a project around it? And then it comes the high customer onboarding cost. If we have a customer with only 25 connections to start with, is it cost effective enough for us to go and onboard such a customer that has a potential to grow? But initiation, the provisioning should be cost effective as well. And then the last thing that Jamie touched upon as well is, what if the customers are coming and are asking for a solution beyond our own footprint coverage? Can we do that? Not only by giving a roaming solution, which we know that has some limitation coming with it, for sure in many specific countries, but even on a global scale, but also caring for performances on a global scale, and data privacy and other issues that require a global thinking? Can we really serve customers that would like us to give them a global service with the legacy solutions that we have? And basically, when we thought about that problem, we thought that to be able to provide a holistic solution for the IoT use cases when it comes to networking and connectivity, the two elements must be there. The first element, we call it flow control, is basically the connectivity management platform. We'll see the components of that platform in the next slide, but basically this is a holistic solution that takes care of connectivity and networking end to end, that supports the low ARPUs of the market in terms of cost of service, the implementation cost, the time to market, and it definitely supports the different use cases that are coming with IoT. Different use cases in terms of size, different use cases in terms of the nature of the connectivity itself, and different use cases that sometimes require some adaptation to the behavior of the network or the management systems of the platform to best serve the specific customers' requirements that we are dealing with. So the first part is the platform, but we thought that the platform will not be enough. And basically what we built to augment our platform is a global network sitting on the cloud that basically does two things. The first thing that it does, it extends the coverage of the MNO or the IoT service provider or the MVNO globally in terms of a network. Packet gateways, UPFs around the world that are able to reduce latency or provide higher throughput as needed, that are also able to instantiate different network topologies when it comes to IoT, like private instances or more protected instances. So basically, when a customer is coming up with a request to have a global network, we can use that global service to serve the networking piece of it. And the second piece is to have coverage from other operators in a simple way and not necessarily using roaming agreements. Now, we know that roaming agreements can be good up to a point, and definitely the MNOs are using roaming agreements to a large extent, but we know that there are more and more countries where roaming agreements, just as they are, do not provide the entire solution when it comes to IoT. Permanent roaming issues or other compliance issues or limitations from the government or from the other MNOs, and that becomes a challenge as as time passes. And here in floLIVE, we thought that whenever the MNOs or the IoT service providers or the MVNOs can come with their own solution globally, that's great. They can use their own connectivity wherever they want. But in specific countries where roaming is not working well enough or the roaming agreements are not good enough, why don't we offer local connectivity based on the agreements that we can form with the local operators? So basically using the FlowNet on top of flow control allows our customers, our IoT service providers customers, MNO customers, MVNO customers, and even global enterprises customers to benefit from a very robust platform with all the features required for managing IoT use cases, but also to be assured that globally the solution will work consistently and without some issues that we are seeing today in the market. So when we talk about the platform of floLIVE, it's a very modern platform, all the buzzwords of the decoupled architecture, sitting on the cloud, using Kubernetes, etc. This is important. This is important not because the technology is more important than of course, the business needs. It is important because modern technology allows us to meet the low ARPUs of the market. It allows us to reach out new use cases more quickly, and it allows the flexibility required from a changing market like IoT. And then on top of that, we have 5 components that constitute our IoT platform. The first one is the connectivity management suite itself. The portal or the API that allows customers, enterprise customers and the service providers sitting behind them to go and manage the IoT connectivity and networking end to end. The second piece is a dedicated core network for IoT. This is an LTE 5G core network that is built with IoT in mind. with the flexibilities and with the efficiencies that can allow the low outputs of the market to really work, and that can cater for different use cases that are coming from different type of devices, as Jamie was showing before. And then the BSS piece of it is very important as well. We know, working in telecommunication companies that when touching the BSS systems, it's always expensive, it's always painful, it takes time. And the integration with the MNO, when we speak about integration with the MNO, we speak a lot about the integration with the BSS systems. And here, if we could build something that is offloading the integration points, meaning putting more on the IoT platform side with more capabilities, so that the integration and the load on the legacy BSS systems would be lower, that could be an advantage from a cost perspective and from a time to market perspective. And of course, also to mention the fact that when we build the BSS capabilities for IoT, we have IoT in mind. So we spoke about pool plans as an example, but there are many other examples that are coming in place when we talk about BSS for IoT. Exactly like core networks are basically core network is a core network, yes? No. For IoT, we would like to have some more flexibilities in the core network. It goes the same for BSS. BSS is not just a BSS. BSS for IoT is slightly different than what we would expect from a legacy, big, expensive BSS that we used to consume up until now. And then there is a component of what we call flow SIM, which is a technology that sits on the SIM card itself and provides the logic needed to optimize the solution on a device level. For example, which operator to use, how to use it, either a logic for what happens if the device cannot find a network. What do we do with all that? So this is the flow SIM component. And the last one is the flow device capabilities that are providing capabilities for managing beyond the connectivity itself, managing devices also. And when we look on that, and Jamie spoke about the customers of the customers, or the customers of yourselves, we look on two ways to basically approach the platform. One is via a set of APIs that can basically consume every capability in the platform, or via a web portal. And the web portal can be a multi-tier web portal where the service provider can define a portal or instantiate a portal for his customers, but then the customers can build sub-accounts or child accounts and let their customers go and manage their connectivity networks devices as needed. So think about the car manufacturer with many dealers around the world. That could be a nice use case to think about child accounts that need to have the ability to manage their own affairs within the platform that you are building. And basically the number of tiers is even greater than 3 as shown here, if that is needed. And then when we talk about the global network, which is the second part, just to remind you, we spoke about the platform and we spoke about the global network or the service. We've implemented that network of networks around the world with local breakouts that are there to improve performances, to meet the compliance needs, but also allows our customers, our service provider customers, our MNO customers, and our big enterprise customers to consume the service on a need basis without needing to go and invest anything. So if a global use case is coming on and the existing roaming solution is just not enough, then there is the ability to go and consume the service and basically pay as you go, pay as you grow, and get that benefit for the customer that really need that service, because not all use cases, to be honest, require optimization of performances and latencies around the world. And the way we build our service to serve our customers, the IoT service providers, the mobile network operators, the global enterprises, is basically to go and work with mobile network operators around the world and be able to use their connectivity, which basically get them revenue coming from other operators or from other enterprise customers. So it's an income opportunity for the MNOs. And by joining our network, basically, and by putting our core network in different parts around the world, we've built that global array of core networks and packet gateways integrated with local operators around the world and on top we have all the abilities and controls needed to manage that platform, and that can be offered as a service again to mobile network operators, to IT service providers, to MVNOs, and to global enterprises to come in to consume the service. Now, an MNO joining that service to have global connectivity or to extend connectivity beyond footprint will basically also benefit from getting some income revenue coming with it. Let's talk about a few case studies here to leave some time for questions. So one case study, an MNO in North America. They were looking for a full connectivity management platform, and their need was a complete IoT connectivity management, including all the components. They were not certain at the beginning that they will take a dedicated core network, but once we have some conversations with them, they realized that a dedicated core network will make their management capabilities more flexible and simpler. Of course, they were looking on lowering the cost because of the market dynamics and the low ARPU nature of IoT. They were looking to integrate with their legacy BSS, but in a light way, or as light as possible. They were looking for quick time to market, and they realized as they were going with some use cases that they have a limited coverage and they will need coverage for IoT beyond their own footprint. And basically what we provided them was on these points. So a low TCO solution with the ability to onboard low-tail enterprise customers with no cost, basically, no provisioning cost. An entire suite, an end-to-end suite with a high level of interoperability, with a comprehensive BSS or billing capabilities, so they can really go and not have too deep integrations, and eventually go live within 3 months from starting the project because of the ability to use some cloud solution there. And the last thing is that when they came across floLIVE, they realized that having a global service augmenting their local platform can get them benefits or can get them competitive edge in the market, and they were looking to use our global coverage as well. There's another MNO in CIS that is using the floLIVE IoT platform. For them, the main consideration was the ability to integrate in the best way with their existing platform. They were looking to keep using their own core network. They were looking to use as much as possible from their BSS capabilities. And they were looking for a platform that can be flexible enough to keep using their existing components and still get the benefits of the IoT. So this is what we offered them, a modular solution with a low TCO and with a little bit longer, obviously, time to market, 5 months versus 3 months, because we did need to integrate with their own systems, but eventually turned successful. And the last use case that I would like to share with you is not a classical connectivity management platform, but rather a use case of a core network that is part of the offering. And we're talking about a national utility provider in EMEA that was looking for a private network for smart meters management, talking about 3 million smart meters for electricity. They were looking for a private network so they can control and manage all the devices by themselves, connect the network to their command and control systems. But they were also looking for a multi-carrier solution. So if one carrier will not have the entire coverage needed, they can fall back to the other carriers in the country, and they needed 3 carriers to work on the same core network. And they needed to have the integration and the compliance in the system so that the system can work with their own platforms in a very seamless way. And when we talk about IoT, connectivity, and networking, this is definitely another layer that is important for our customers, the ability to define the network topologies that they find required for their own use cases. So just to quickly go and summarize that, the platform basically provides the easy scale up, the open platform, the cost-effective solution, the quick time to market, and the ability to adapt the solution to the specific use cases. And then the service outside the footprint will go to the high performance globally, to the compliance, to the fact that we can augment or add more agreements to the pool that the MNOs already have, and to basically get more revenue coming from use cases from the other members of that alliance that are joining the service. So let me pause here, and let's see how we would like to facilitate the Q&A session.
Okay, Nir, thank you so much. Yeah, and we have lots of great questions to go through. So I think just let's have a conversation, guys, because I want to chat about a few things that were discussed, and it kind of comes through the questions as well. So one is just real quickly, want to talk a little bit about roaming and sort of the challenges there. I know, Jamie, we've looked at this pretty extensively and kind of the mess that is. Could you just maybe provide a little bit of context on sort of the challenges with roaming, particularly when you start looking across different regions? And then, Nir, I'm just curious if you could add maybe a little bit as it relates to either some examples or why it's so important that maybe this complexity in that domain, particularly as we look at how products more and more need to be global. How floLIVE is addressing that and sort of maybe handing off that complexity to you. So Jamie, can you just add a few thoughts there?
Yes, absolutely. So we have the issues of who has responsibility for the connected device when it's roaming abroad. Who do issues get escalated to? Is it the serving carrier? Is it the carrier that owns the contract with the enterprise or with the device OEM that's operating the network of connected equipment? We have extensive issues with permanent roaming. We've got mobile operators all over the world who are very, very keen to serve the global IoT market. We've got lots and lots of enterprises that are keen to be active in countries all around the world. Each wants to serve and or buy from the other. But it's hard for a carrier to be able to guarantee the same quality of service and the same SLAs over networks that they don't own. And the national regulatory authorities don't have anything approaching a harmonized policy on permanent roaming, for example. When connected devices are manufactured and they're distributed and they're locally activated, will they then stay in that market? Will they then migrate to other markets? Does this information need to be known in advance so that the appropriate business relationships can be put in place? Does the device need to then become permanently registered on a local network? Can it operate with a SIM that's assigned to a foreign carrier? Can it operate on a global SIM basis, for example? There's just no standardization of approach. And we know that regulatory authorities, they tend to move relatively slowly when it comes to allowing or not permanent roaming. There can be political implications there as well. Sometimes whether or not extensive roaming is allowed or how long devices are allowed to roam is down to individual agreements cut between carriers from different countries, personally allowing each other's devices, for example, access to each other's networks. So that kind of fragmentation creates all sorts of issues for launching genuinely globally available products, as I mentioned earlier on, at a reliable, predictable price point, because that's absolutely critical for enterprises. Nobody wants to get into this IoT market not knowing how much it's going to cost them. And right from the very start, roaming has been a key obstacle, which we've still been fighting to find a way to solve.
Great. So, Nir, would you have any other thoughts on that? Yeah, I would just say that obviously there are specific countries with more limitations. There are countries that are more open for roaming, and I think what we are seeing is that more and more countries are putting more and more limitations on permanent roaming for IoT use cases, right? For different reasons. So we believe that the trend will continue there. Okay. So lots of questions for you, Nir. So let's make sure some of these get answered. So I'm going to start with one here. Should a customer invested in local 4G, 5G, 3G RAN, will Flo be able to integrate with its core directly? So if I understand the question correctly, is if a customer is using a private radio access network and not a public one, will Flow Core be able to support that? The answer is yes. We are working on already on a couple of use cases for what we call private networks, and floCore can be used for integrating with local radio access also, of course, in the countries where such technologies are available from a frequency perspective and all that.
Okay. Here's another one. These are very network specific, so I should probably just sort of get these to you and get them out of the way. So for floCore LTE 5G network, which frequency bands from RAN are supported? Does frequency bands being used have impact on Flow LTE Core?
Yeah, so I suggested, anyone that sent that question, we can maybe take this one offline. There are different options to use floCore with regards to specific bands, and it depends on countries and the specific technologies and use cases. I can say generally that it's very flexible, but I prefer that this question will be answered, between the technical team, so we get the proper answer to the team.
Okay. All right, so there's a question on APIs. I think you've kind of provided that. Yes, floLIVE offers APIs for integration. I think there's a request for an online demo, so I think you can reach out directly for that question or that caller's request. Let's see. When a monitor asset roams, so I'm getting back to the roam, do you change the MC or does that stay constant?
Yeah. So basically, the platform has the ability to do both. The native capability of the platform is to swap IMSIs based on a logic that can be defined either over the air or by the customer. So, for example, we can define that in Europe we use one IMSI, or in a specific country the other IMSI, and the platform will be able to swap that to a local IMSI automatically if needed. There is also an option to update the logic over the air. So for example, up until now, we used MNO X in a specific country, but for some reason it doesn't work for our customers, and they would like to swap it to another MNO in that country. That could be done as well over the air. So I would say that it's very flexible in that request, but we try to use local original IMSIs as much as possible and not global roaming IMSIs, and we swap the IMSIs as needed.
Okay. And then I think extending on near, because again, I want to make sure that you're able to kind of really provide that insight on floLIVE as it relates to this topic. How does floLIVE, or how does the floLIVE CMP take care of possible subscription management in the case of USEC, SIM, used to manage, so SIM profiles if local connectivity mandatory. So this example is if local connectivity is mandatory and then you have to deal with regulatory restrictions.
Yeah, so basically the answer to that is pretty extensive, and I'm not sure that we have time to cover it all, but let's just give the highlights of it, and then very happy to have an offline conversation and to go deeper into it. Basically, the whole idea behind the floLIVE solution is that we optimize the use of a specific operator based on location. And when we say optimize, it means from different perspectives. It can be compliance or performance or cost or all the above mentioned categories. Now, as I mentioned in my previous answer, floLIVE has its own capability to go into swap SIMs and manage that logic completely independently. But we do realize that the customers sometimes would like to work in a more, let's call it in the EUICC way, in a more standard way. So the Flow SIM, the SIM cards of floLIVE will support the ability to use EUICC as well as part of the platform. And then basically a customer can choose at some point to use EUICC and do something a little bit different. So this is also supported as part of the platform.
Okay, good. A question on kind of the platform aspects, and I'm just going to offer some comments here. It's about the functionality within platforms, and does it need other things like data harmonization, analytics, graphical reporting? So let me just comment on platform, because the term platform, particularly doesn't matter what technology domain you're in, is very gets overused in my view. In the IoT domain, platform certainly has been overviewed, and traditionally that term applied to kind of device to cloud services, which can include the connectivity and the connection management platform. I would say, though, in general, when we look at sort of evolution of these services, which include companies offering, quote, platforms, the goal here is really to simplify solution enablement, and in this case, in the IoT domain. So adding additional functionalities and capabilities are all part of that, which can include sort of the data management piece, adding additional analytics and AI to help better use the data and manage and seeing what's happening in those data streams, include using blockchain. So there's really lots of components that are being added to these aggregated services offerings, again, to help simplify. And I think that's the case with floLIVE as well. Nir, I don't know if you want to offer some additional thoughts on that, but the idea is that we're going to simplify this, because IoT is definitely a partnership game. It's also a very complex game, particularly when you think about the technologies.
Yeah, I would just add that removing the friction in this market, I think, is something that we all want. There is a lot of friction in the IoT market, and definitely looking on doing that.
Yep, absolutely. Let's see. So let's see. Here's another one. Is the MZ swap based on standardized EUICC, MDM version, or LPA? Yeah.
So as I hinted before, basically we work in there are two modes for us to work. One, we have our own proprietary mechanism to swap IMSIs, and the proprietary mechanism that we offer solves some of the existing EUICC issues, like the cost of swap, the data consumption when swapping, the time it takes for the device to swap, and some other benefits that come with our own proprietary technology to make the swap as smooth and as simple and as cost effective as possible. At the same time, we are supporting EUICC, because some customers do want to use EUICC for their own SIMs for different reasons. So that would be supported as well. We believe that using the floLIVE way will be more cost effective, but nevertheless, if a customer insists to use the EUICC option, then we'll support that also.
Great. Thank you, Nir. Looking at the rest of these questions, I think these will probably be best handled offline. So I think we're going to end this webinar today. I want to thank everyone who attended. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Nir. Very informative, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day and evening. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.